Imagine waking up to discover that your entire company, a Fortune 500 titan, has been hacked. Not just any breach, but a silent, devastating cyberattack that exposes the data of over 100,000 employees and brings operations to a grinding halt. This is real. It happened. And the story you're about to hear might just be the biggest cybersecurity cover-up of the decade. The company, Nippon Steel, the breach, sophisticated, the damage, still being uncovered, and they weren't the only ones. Erie Insurance was next. Let's unravel what happened and why no one's talking. March 2025. Tokyo. Inside Nippon Steel's towering, glass-clad headquarters, the day unfolded like any other. Elevators hummed. Keycards beeped at turnstiles. Executives sipped coffee in minimalist conference rooms lined with silent displays. Emails pinged across departments. Procurement chased deadlines. Engineering refined alloys. The rhythm of steel, molten, mechanical, relentless, echoed through massive production sites from Chiba to Kitakyushu. Everything looked normal. Order, efficiency, progress. But beneath that orderly hum of industrial modernity, something deeply abnormal had taken root. It started with a routine diagnostic. A mid-tier IT analyst, buried in logs, noticed an unusual pattern, a low but steady surge in outbound data. Nothing huge, nothing explosive, but strange. The packets were trickling out, always at night, always to a rotating list of unfamiliar IP addresses. No geographic consistency, no domain names, just raw numbers, just silence. There were no alerts, no malware signatures, no phishing attempts, just leakage. Like a tiny crack in a pressurized pipe, invisible until it's too late. By the time it reached the eyes of Nippon Steel's cybersecurity division, the breach was already weeks old. As the truth emerged, panic set in. What began as a curious anomaly escalated into a full-blown crisis. Conference rooms once used for quarterly strategy reviews turned into digital war rooms. Executives flew in from Nagoya, Osaka, and Fukuoka. An emergency summit was convened behind locked doors, no devices allowed. The order came swiftly and decisively. Shut everything down. Entire sectors of Nippon Steel's infrastructure went dark. Production lines screeched to a halt. Robotic arms froze mid-assembly. Smelting furnaces were powered down, a decision not taken lightly. Stopping a blast furnace isn't like flipping a switch. It takes hours, sometimes days. And restarting them? Even longer. Email systems, VPN access, and enterprise cloud accounts all disabled in a controlled purge. The goal wasn't containment. It was an amputation. Internal teams dubbed it Operation Icebox. Everything that could be disconnected was. Mainframes were physically unplugged, network cables yanked out by hand. Even smart lighting and HVAC systems were turned off. The financial toll was immediate and brutal. Millions are lost per hour. Billions potentially erased in long-term damage. Delayed shipments, breached contracts. Supply chain chaos is rippling across Asia and beyond. But worse than the money, the silence. Partners called. No one answered. Clients emailed. Auto-replies looped endlessly. The world's third-largest steel producer had gone dark, and that darkness spoke volumes. And in the vacuum, rumors began to swirl. Did Nippon Steel pay a ransom? Officially, no comment. Publicly, no evidence. But insiders, the ones closest to the incident, whispered another story. According to one internal memo, the attackers had made demands. Encrypted messages are sent to internal mail servers. Instructions for contacting an anonymous negotiator. Threats that, unless paid, data would be released, gradually, surgically, and globally. And then, nothing. No employee data leaked. No client lists surfaced on dark web forums. No engineering blueprints appeared in Telegram channels or ransomware blogs. It was all too clean, too fast, too neat. Within 3 weeks, Nippon Steel announced that systems were fully restored, operations resumed, public confidence returned. Stock prices rebounded with uncanny speed. Security experts outside the company were stunned. "You don't recover from a breach of this scale without something leaking," one analyst said. Either the attackers walked away, or they were paid off. Of course, no evidence of a ransom payment has ever been found. No Bitcoin wallet, no Monero trail, no whistleblower email. But consider this. For a company of Nippon Steel's size, with clients that include governments and megacorporations, what's the greater risk? Paying quietly, or letting the world see how deeply they were compromised? We may never know the truth, but what we do know is chilling. Someone got in. Someone got what they came for. And someone unknown holds the keys to secrets that never should have left the factory walls. Nippon Steel isn't just a pillar of Japanese industry. It's the backbone of global infrastructure. Their products reinforce highways in India, support skyscrapers in Dubai, anchor warships in the Pacific. Major automakers, from Toyota to Tesla, rely on their alloys. So do construction giants, railway systems, and even aerospace firms. This breach wasn't just a corporate scandal. It was a crack in the global machine. Had the breach gone undetected, or worse, uncontained, the ripple effects would have been massive. Contract delays, component shortages, entire industrial schedules thrown into chaos. That's why, within days of the breach being discovered, whispers emerged that the incident had gone transnational. Global cybersecurity alliances were discreetly pinged. CERT teams in the EU, specialist consultants in the US. Some reports even hinted at quiet involvement from Japan's Cabinet Cybersecurity Center. Why such urgency? Because this wasn't just a question of reputation or profit. It was about national resilience. If a threat actor could compromise a company like Nippon Steel, what else was vulnerable? It wasn't just about steel, it was about trust. And trust, once fractured, doesn't come back easily. Behind the scenes, it was digital bedlam. Nippon Steel security operations centers turned into triage units. Hard drives are pulled from racks in the middle of the night. Firewall rules rewritten on the fly. SIEM dashboards are flooded with red alerts. Packets were inspected, one by one, frame by agonizing frame. Encrypted blobs were dissected using custom-built decoders. Every line of code in every router was re-examined. Outside firms were brought in under airtight NDAs. Private sector cyber forensic specialists. Ex-intelligence analysts. White hat hackers flown in quietly from Singapore, Berlin, Tel Aviv. Their objective, not just cleanup, erase. The goal wasn't to patch the breach. It was to obliterate any trace of how it happened. But despite the man-hours, the high-end tools, and the brutal intensity of the response, they never found the intruder. No signature malware, no IP trail that led anywhere real, no pastebin brag, no underground forum post taking credit. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. They entered quietly, moved precisely, and left without triggering a single tripwire. It was surgical, professional, elite, and then nothing. Gone, as if they'd never been there at all. In the wake of the breach, Nippon Steel rolled out sweeping reforms. Endpoint detection systems were overhauled. Zero-trust architectures went live across all facilities. Legacy hardware was ripped out. Intelligent-driven anomaly detection, trained on months of breach data, now watches every byte. Publicly, they issued statements, commitments to transparency, apologies to stakeholders. But in cybersecurity circles, the questions wouldn't go away. Why wasn't this already in place? How does a company with this much at stake miss something so fundamental? Was it arrogance, complacency, budget politics? And the question no one wanted to ask out loud: could it happen again? Because the ghost in the factory may be gone. But no one's entirely sure it didn't leave a door cracked open. Erie Insurance, The price of inaction. June 7, 2025. Pennsylvania. It started as a blip. Inside Erie Insurance's headquarters, tucked in a quiet Pennsylvania office park, the first hints of trouble were subtle. A routine traffic monitoring script, something low-level, IT teams, ran in the background, flagged a few anomalies. Memory spikes, sudden CPU surges. Login sessions are timing out across multiple systems. Sluggishness in internal dashboards. It looked like a software hiccup. A busy Friday morning. Nothing urgent. But by sunset, that changed. Entire portals dropped offline. Core systems, claims, policy lookup, and document management all became unresponsive. By midnight, even internal messaging systems went quiet. No emails, no notifications, no system alerts. Just silence. From the outside, it looked like the website was down. A few customers posted complaints, but inside the company, something far worse had unfolded. Erie Insurance had just been digitally paralyzed. The first suspicion? Ransomware. But not the garden variety lockerware that hit small-town dental offices. This was different. This was precision. The attackers had moved in slowly, likely through stolen employee credentials. No phishing emails, no suspicious attachments. Just quiet access, escalating permissions, hopping between systems, and learning the layout of the network. Then, all at once, the trap was sprung. The back-end infrastructure is encrypted, policyholder records locked, internal drives rendered unreadable, claims processing engines, the very heart of the business, were iced. The IT department tried to respond, but it was like fighting with blindfolds on. Backup systems were either inaccessible or had been sabotaged. Redundant servers? Infected? Recovery protocols? Slow and clumsy, the ransomware itself was custom. No known strain, no decryptor tool available, and worst of all, no ransom note, no demand, no timer counted down, just encrypted chaos. Whether this was extortion or sabotage, no one could tell. What was clear, Erie was locked out of its own digital home, and the clock was ticking. By morning, the phone lines lit up. Customers couldn't log into their accounts, couldn't submit claims, couldn't even check their policy status. The online systems, once Erie's proud investment in digital modernization, were now digital dead zones. And things got worse. Fast. Some policyholders were waiting for reimbursements, for totaled cars, for storm-damaged roofs, for funeral expenses. Suddenly, those payments were delayed. For days, then weeks. Families found themselves financially stranded. Widows waiting for life insurance checks. Contractors are unable to repair client homes. Single moms with no rental car coverage after accidents. Small businesses, those who depended on Erie for quick commercial coverage, were left exposed. Digitally uninsured. No claims processing, no adjusters, no support. As days dragged on and Erie remained silent, frustration turned into fury. Online forums exploded, #ErieFail began trending. Local news outlets picked up the story, then national ones. And then came the lawsuits. Class action filings began to stack up. Accusations of negligence. Claims that Erie had failed to protect sensitive customer data. That it hadn't invested in the cybersecurity systems a company of its size required. The language in the court filings was damning. Erie Insurance left its customers exposed, and when systems went down, they abandoned us in the dark. Public trust began to fracture. Customers weren't just mad, they were organizing. And they weren't looking for apologies. They were coming for blood. Inside Erie Insurance, the scramble was immediate and chaotic. Crisis teams were mobilized overnight. War rooms were set up across multiple floors. IT staff worked double shifts, operating on energy drinks and adrenaline. The goal? Figure out what happened and do it fast. Third-party cybersecurity consultants arrived in droves, flown in from New York, Austin, even Tel Aviv. Some were specialists in ransomware mitigation. Others were digital archaeologists, trained to uncover footprints in burned-down networks. But Erie had a problem. Everything and everyone was locked out. With the back-end infrastructure encrypted, forensic tracing was like trying to solve a crime scene blindfolded. Every forensic tool relies on access, and access was gone. There were no splash screens, no timer ticking down, no ransom note demanding Bitcoin, just silence. Weeks passed. No known hacker group claimed responsibility. No announcements, no leaks on dark web forums, no signs that this was a publicity stunt or political statement. But eventually, a phrase surfaced, quietly, from inside sources close to the investigation. Credential harvesting. This wasn't a brute force attack. This wasn't malware blasting its way through firewalls. The intruders didn't break in. They walked in, with valid usernames, valid passwords, maybe from phishing emails sent months prior, maybe from session hijacking, maybe from an exposed VPN endpoint. Once inside, they watched, mapped the architecture, scoped out the crown jewels, and then they struck. Precise, patient, and devastating. Even as Erie's systems crawled back online after nearly 3 full weeks, the damage was already irreversible. The trust was gone. Customers didn't care how sophisticated the hackers were. They cared that their claims weren't processed, that their policies were inaccessible. Emails to Erie went unanswered during worst life moments. Social media was merciless. Screenshots of error messages. Emails with "We're working on it" sent as auto-replies. Thousands of posts under hashtags like Erie Breach, Insurance Blackout, and Do Better Erie. Investors took notice. Erie's stock dipped sharply, erasing hundreds of millions in market cap. Board members held emergency meetings. Analysts issued downgrades. Some whispered about leadership shakeups. Then came the regulators. State insurance commissioners began inquiries. Data privacy watchdogs filed notices. The FTC requested briefings. And behind it all, the lawsuits piled up. By mid-July, class action complaints were filed in at least 5 states. Customers, small businesses, and even contractors all demanding damages. This wasn't just a breach. It was a reckoning. When the dust settled, the audits began. And what they found was worse than anyone expected. No company is breach-proof. But Erie Insurance hadn't just been breached. It had been outdated. Critical systems were still running on legacy software, some untouched since 2017. Multi-factor authentication, MFA. Only partially enforced. VPNs were still being used without zero-trust segmentation. Endpoint detection systems were minimal. Worse, there was no modern security information and event management in place. Log data that might have flagged suspicious behavior. Gone, overwritten, or never collected at all. The findings were damning. Years of underinvestment, delayed upgrades, a false sense of security wrapped in corporate inertia. One analyst put it bluntly. This breach wasn't just a failure of technology. It was a failure of culture. The hackers may have stolen data, but what they exposed was a mindset. One that saw cybersecurity as an IT line item, not a boardroom priority. And in 2025, that kind of thinking isn't just outdated, it's dangerous. The pattern emerges. Who's next? 2 companies, 2 worlds apart. Nippon Steel, an industrial titan, built on molten metal and precision. Erie Insurance, a digital era service provider, trusted with personal tragedies and financial futures. One powers cities. The other cushions life when disaster strikes. And yet, both fell. Not because they were foolish, not because they didn't have firewalls, but because they shared one critical flaw. They underestimated the threat. Nippon Steel ran military-grade infrastructure, segmentation, redundancy. custom-built hardware. Decades of hardened protocols have been developed to withstand corporate espionage and nation-state probes. And still, it wasn't enough. A zero-day vulnerability. Used once. Used well. And then gone. Erie Insurance had trust, brand loyalty, a quiet kind of digital confidence built over decades of steady business. But behind the scenes, old software, weak credential policies, and a false sense of security that cost them dearly. 2 breaches, 2 very different methods, but the same outcome: silence, paralysis, chaos, and, most chilling of all, no one was caught. Not a single name, no arrests, no takedowns, no shadowy group claiming credit. Whoever did this wasn't chasing clout. They weren't script kiddies looking for trophies. They were professionals, methodical, invisible, effective, which raises the uncomfortable question. If Nippon Steel wasn't safe with its hardened infrastructure, national significance, and industrial discipline, if Erie Insurance wasn't safe with its customer-facing systems, regulated operations, and years of digital investment, who is? If you're a hospital chain with outdated network protocols, a retail giant still using legacy payment systems, a logistics firm juggling IoT devices with no firmware updates, a university with 1,000 unmanaged endpoints. Are you safe? Are your backups clean? Do you know who has access to your systems right now? Have you checked? Because in 2025, the rules have changed. This isn't just about data anymore. It's about trust. It's about uptime. It's about survival. The attackers don't need to shout. They don't need to broadcast. They just need to walk in. Quietly. Wait. Watch. And then strike. When it hurts most. The pattern is emerging. And it's not random. It's targeted, calculated, deliberate. Not every breach will make the headlines. Some companies will pay to stay silent. Some won't even realize they've been compromised until the damage is done. But make no mistake, this is just the beginning. The ghosts are moving. Across industries, across borders, across systems that were once considered secure. They've already proven one thing. Fortune 500? Doesn't matter. Old school security playbooks? Obsolete. If you're connected, you're a target. If you're digital, you're vulnerable. The only real question left is, who's next? This isn't over. In our next story, we'll go inside the breach of an American logistics firm whose truck stopped rolling after a cyberattack hijacked their dispatch systems. No backups, no fallback, no warning. A hack that brought real-world goods to a halt and showed just how fragile our connected economy has become. Stay tuned. If you found this story eye-opening, hit that like button and subscribe. You're not just watching stories, you're watching what's coming. Catch you next time on True Hacker Chronicles.